What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Rob of The Coffin Shakers. It's great to have you here, man. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Nice
it's
to be here.
it's awesome to have you here with Graves' Release Your Dead coming out on the 15th. It's been a while since we've gotten new Coffin Shakers. It's great to hear some new stuff coming from you guys. Was there sort of like a vision that you had in mind for the making of this album, being that it is the first record that we've heard in a long time, or was this a very like roll of the dice songwriting process?
Uh, yeah, it was. I think it all started with the guitarist having a bunch of new songs. Suddenly, he got into this songwriting spree. So it started there, and yeah, finally we got it together. We've had we had a history of taking very long time to do stuff the last 20 years. So.
Yeah. And is there a specific reason for that? Do you just prefer to take your time in a way?
Well, for me, yeah, well, we're not 20 anymore. All the guys in the band got kids and families. So it just like slowed down naturally. And I started a lot of other projects of my own.
Yeah. When it came to the making of this album, having songs such as "City of the Dead" versus "Down in Flames" versus "Prince of Darkness" to "The Great Silence," it seems like every song had its own sort of emotional vibe behind it. Was there many different
Yeah,
emotions felt through the making of this album?
yeah, and it's also some of the songs are. Um, the main part is written the last 3 years, but some of the songs, like Prince of Darkness, is an old song I wrote right after I started the band back in the 90s. So I guess naturally it's got a more old school Coffin Shakers vibe. And The Great Silence is also a song of mine that's been around for maybe 10 years or something, that we just finally managed to rehearse in a way that we felt that it became a good song finally.
Um, did those songs change a lot over a span of time, being that you've had them for a long time?
Yeah, yes and no. Prince of Darkness, I guess, is pretty much exactly the same as when I wrote it in back in '96. But The Great Silence has been a work in progress, so it just finally got finished when we started recording.
Do you feel like that this album does continue in a similar vein to albums such as Dark Wings or Reverends of Doom in a way? Like, do you feel like it continues in like a similar sort of style in a way, or have you experimented over the years more?
I would say it's basically the same style, yes. Maybe as years go on, we get a lot of more and more influences from different kinds of music. So, but the core of the songs and the sound has been the same for 20-25 years, I guess.
Who would you say are the core influences for the Coffin Shakers that have always been there?
That would, of course, be Johnny Cash from the start, and yeah, those big outlaw country artists, and Lee Hazelwood was a big influence from the beginning,
Yeah.
and some surf style music, instrumental '60s stuff like The Ventures.
Yeah, I felt like maybe there was sort of like a Woody Allen vibe behind it as well, like or like gothic Johnny Cash in a way, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, sure.
Was there any gothic influences as well for the Coffin Shakers?
Yeah, of course. Mainly lyric wise, and the general melancholic atmosphere of many of the songs. um, I was Me and the guitarist we were in a punk band before that was heavily influenced by the Misfits, for example, and yeah, late 80s, early 90s, listened to a lot of Sisters of Mercy, Fields of Nephilim, The Cure, stuff like that seeps through. And also, I grew up with the black metal scene here in Scandinavia, and that was a huge influence as well.
I wanted to ask that, growing up in the sort of black metal scene in a way, or like, cultivating your teeth in there, if you were to show Mayhem or Satyricon or Gorgoroth or any of those guys what the Coffin Shakers would be, I mean, how did you sort of fit in with that scene in a way? Did you turn some heads?
Yeah, I guess the country music was frowned upon, to say the least, here in by most people here in Scandinavia, and of course certainly by punks and metalheads. But when we did this with the horror lyrics, people started to give it a chance in some way.
I've always said that the Coffin Shakers is a good band to prank somebody with, in a way, where like to prank like a metalhead. You show them the lyrics to a Coffin Shaker song, they think, "Oh man, this band must sound like Cannibal Corpse," and then they go and listen to it. I feel like it's a good way to fool somebody.
Yeah, yeah, perhaps. I guess I don't know what to say about that, but the lyric themes, especially when we started, there weren't that many dark country bands and stuff like that around. At least we didn't know about them back before the internet and so on.
Would you say that lyrically, that is it? Do you approach your lyrics from a very personal point of view in a way, or is there like a lot of fantasy aspects behind it? Do you almost consider yourself to like, is a track like the Prince of Darkness almost like a self portrait in a way, or like or a track like the Siren's Call, is that like almost mythological in that extent?
Yeah, I would say we do. We have both kinds of approaches. Some is just pure storytelling, and some is you put a little bit more personal thoughts into. But mainly, I mean, you go on stage or into the studio as a character in some way, and treat it like you were an actor or something. But it's a bit different from track to track. A lot of, from the beginning, I took most influences for the lyrics from these old 60s, 70s horror movies, mainly, Hammer horror and Italian and Spanish horror cinema. A lot of times just saw a movie poster and started thinking about, you never saw the movie, but you started imagining what that movie could be about and wrote a lyric about that.
I was gonna ask too, by having many different subject matters, does it maybe resonate with you in a different level? Does it feel like you channel a different energy into the song depending on what it can be about, if it's more personal versus something more fictional?
Yeah, sure. Of course, but in one way we like to keep the Coffin Shakers in, what you say, keep it kind of on the same path. Don't want too big strays from the road, or so to speak. If I write something in another theme, I maybe need to use that for some of my other projects.
Has there ever been a time that maybe a lyrical idea helped dictate the direction of the music in a way?
Yeah, I think most of the time we start with the music, and you kind of build the lyrics around what the vibe in the music. I think that's more common. Or in the beginning, I did it the other way around a bit. It just came up with a cool title and started working from that.
Is there almost ever a time where there's like maybe a lot of searching for inspiration through other mediums of art? You mentioned horror movies, but has literature or visual art or other subject matters also been a means of artistic exploration and research?
Yeah, a lot of times. And I think the new album is largely written by the guitarist, and I know he's been very much influenced by the state of the world at the moment, and it translated that into our horror universe with the change in the world that he's felt, people becoming more and more hollow zombies, it's hard to explain, but I guess you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The world is changing, and it's become the last 10 years, it's become maybe a more dangerous place than it at least felt like it was when we grew up.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because you've taken so long in between albums and stuff, and the world changes quite a lot from the 90s to now.
Of course.
And I believe you had an album come out, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like 07, I believe, was, at least that I can remember, was the last Coffin Shakers album. So
yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah, so just to put into perspective, that's 3 presidents later now. So like... Oh. The world has changed so much. So with the making of the album, are you almost kind of recapping everything that came before, or did you almost kind of like focus on the present in a way? Like, because between 2007 and the 90s, a lot happened between then too. We had multiple wars, a whole state of panic, and a lot of transitional periods of the year. So like, I was wondering, is there a lot of recapping, or is it a lot of focusing in the present?
I think mainly focused on present. I think most of the album was written in the early days of the pandemic as well. And so, yeah, I guess it seeped through quite a lot, the whole state of mind of the general state of mind of the people and how you felt about the world at the moment. Yeah.
I'm just curious too with like the dark subject matter, because again, I said it before, I could read your lyrics and think it's the lyrics to some of the most brutal death or black metal bands that are out there. But what we hear in the Coffin Shakers, how did your expression of this darkness result in the sound that we hear?
Sorry,
basically, how do you feel? Why do you feel like the sound that we hear in the Coffin Shakers is the best sound to get, to express that darkness?
Oh yeah. I mean, there is quite a heavy connection to the old school country folk music that goes back to murder ballads. Dark themes never was it always was present in country music, I guess, and old folk music. People have never been scared to bring up those really dark subject matters. So I thought it always made quite a good fit in that way. Like, for example, when you hear like a song, what example is good? Down by the Willow Garden, that old folk song that was made popular in the 50s by the Everly Brothers. It's like this beautiful pop folk song, but it's extremely dark subject matter. and I think it's quite a good fit, but it has been more and more uncommon from the 70s, 80s, and on in mainstream country. But
Well, because I've always had conversations with multiple artists about how metal relates to other forms of music, most commonly classical music. A lot of people say classical music is metal before electricity, but I've also heard a lot of people connect heavy metal to hip hop because of the sort of realness within it in a way. But do you think that there is at all sort of like a similarity between country and metal as well? Because I think that this is, and another thing I wanted to bring up too is there's a fantastic band, maybe you heard of them, called Twin Temple, and I mean they're singing about Satanism, and you know how darkness resonates with them in the style of like what you would hear from Amy Winehouse. So I was just wondering, do you find any sort of connection between heavy metal and country?
well, heavy metal and country. I guess it's that. I guess both is quite connected with the working class traditionally. Heavy metal was the working class kids' music back in the 70s and 80s, and country music. I guess also the music of the common man, blue collar man. So that's a similarity, I guess, but.
I mean, after hearing Johnny Cash do that Nine Inch Nails cover, I would want to see maybe a death metal band do a Josh Turner cover. Maybe lock the doors and turn the lights down low. But you never know.
Might work.
Yeah. Hey, I just pitched an idea to you. So before we go, I want to thank you.
You won't hear me growl though.
Yeah. Maybe. I never say never. Is there just anything else with the Coffin Shakers that you'd like to promote with the release of this new album coming out September 15th?
Yeah, sorry?
Is there just anything else with the Coffin Shakers that you'd like to promote before we go?
No, not really. It's just that we're pretty happy with the album that comes out now, and we'll try to go on the road as much as we can, because we've been pretty slow with that as well. So, and hopefully we can just start working on the next album sooner than in 15 years.
Yeah,
See about that.
Just to put it in perspective, a couple days ago was my 30th birthday, and the last album came out over half my lifetime ago, when I was 13.
Yeah.
So like maybe not too long this time.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
Yeah, but thank you so much, everybody. We are here with the Coffin Shakers. Graves Release Your Dead, out September 15th. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thank you very much.